Have you ever heard someone say, "I'm just being honest," right after they tore you apart with their words? Pay attention, because that seemingly harmless phrase can be one of the cruelest weapons someone uses against you. And the worst part? They know exactly what they're doing. Socrates, the philosopher who changed the world with his questions, warned about this more than 2,000 years ago. He recognized when people used truth as an excuse to hurt others. And today, you're going to learn how to spot these toxic individuals who hide behind fake good intentions. Stay with me until the end of this video, because I'm going to reveal not just this deadly phrase, but 5 other expressions toxic people use to manipulate you and destroy your peace. The last one is so eye-opening, it will make you rethink all your relationships. Before we go on, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. This content can completely change the way you see the people around you. I promise every minute here is worth it. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever felt that strange sensation after talking to someone? That tight feeling in your chest? That lingering doubt about whether you were overreacting or if something was actually wrong? Yeah, your instinct was right. The ancient Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, taught something fundamental. Watch actions, not words. Words are cheap. Anyone can say what you want to hear, but actions reveal the raw truth about who someone really is. Socrates had an incredible method. He asked questions, simple, direct questions that forced people to confront their own contradictions. And do you know what he discovered? Many people use logic and reason as a facade to hide darker intentions. When someone tells you, "I'm just being honest," pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, does this person truly care about me, or are they just looking for an excuse to dump their poison on me? Because real honesty comes with compassion. Someone who genuinely cares about you can be truthful without tearing you down. They can point out your mistakes without humiliating you. They can disagree without making you feel worthless. But a toxic person, they use that phrase as a shield, as if honesty justifies cruelty, as if being direct gives them the right to completely ignore your feelings. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private meditations that we must protect ourselves from people who drain our energy. He was the emperor of Rome, dealing with traitors, envy, and flatterers. And even then, or maybe because of it, he understood the importance of distancing himself from those who only bring destruction. Think about this. When was the last time someone criticized you in a constructive way, helped you improve, and supported you afterward? Now compare that to the person who only points out your flaws, always with that little smirk, always ending with, "But I'm just being honest." See the difference? The Stoics taught us to seek mental clarity, to see reality as it is, without illusions. And the reality is, there are people who take pleasure in seeing you suffer, people who feed on your pain, people who need to diminish you to feel bigger themselves. Socrates was sentenced to death precisely for exposing these uncomfortable truths, for making people see themselves, for refusing to accept hypocrisy. He chose to drink hemlock, the poison that killed him, rather than betray his principles. So what poison have you been drinking every day? How many times have you accepted insults, humiliation, and disrespect just because someone claims they're being honest? Epictetus, who was born a slave before becoming one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, said something powerful. You can't control what others say or do, but you can control how you respond. You control whether you let it affect you. You control whether you keep those people in your life. Think about that. You have the power to choose who stays in your life. You have the right to walk away from people who hurt you. And no, that's not weakness. That's wisdom. Stoic philosophy is clear. Protect your inner peace above all else. Don't let external people control your emotional state. Don't give anyone the power to destroy your tranquility. So when someone comes at you with, "I'm just being honest," you already know what to do. Breathe. Observe. Analyze this person's pattern of behavior. Because once might be an accident, Twice might be coincidence, but three times is intentional. And people who are intentionally cruel don't deserve space in your life. It doesn't matter how long you've known them. It doesn't matter if they're family. It doesn't matter what ties exist. Your mental health is worth more. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet every day he reminded himself that true strength lies in mastering your own emotions, in having the discernment to know who deserves your energy. Now come with me into the next part, because I'm about to reveal the second phrase toxic people use to manipulate you. And this one is even more subtle, even more dangerous. Stay tuned. The second phrase that reveals hidden resentment is even more dangerous. You're too sensitive. Pay close attention to this one, because it's used to completely invalidate your feelings and make you question your own sanity. Do you know what the Stoics would call this? Philosophical gaslighting. Someone hurts you, then convinces you the real problem is that you feel hurt. It's brilliant in its cruelty. Socrates faced this constantly. Whenever he questioned the accepted truths of Athens, people said he was difficult, that he overreacted, that he was complicating simple things. But he knew his questions were valid, and he kept going. Epictetus, who lived much of his life as a slave, endured unimaginable abuse. And still, he taught something revolutionary. Validating your own feelings is an act of freedom. No one gets to tell you what you should or shouldn't feel. When someone says you're too sensitive, they're doing two terrible things at once. First, they're dodging responsibility for what they did. Second, they're blaming you for reacting like a human being. Think about this. If you touch a hot stove and get burned, is the problem the heat or your hand for being too sensitive? Ridiculous, right? But that's exactly what people like this do to you emotionally. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should accept our emotions without judgment. Feeling anger, sadness, or disappointment doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. What makes you strong is learning to process those emotions without letting them control you. But when someone repeatedly invalidates your feelings, they don't want what's best for you. They want control. They want you doubting yourself. They want you feeling guilty for having perfectly legitimate emotions. And you know what happens? You start policing yourself. You think twice before expressing discomfort. You swallow hurt feelings. You start accepting the unacceptable because you're afraid of being labeled too sensitive. The Stoics taught emotional self-reliance. That doesn't mean suppressing feelings. It means not depending on outside validation to know that what you feel is real and important. Socrates had a brilliant technique for dealing with this. When someone accused him of being difficult or dramatic, he would calmly ask, "Then tell me, what would be the appropriate reaction in this situation?" And they never had a good answer, because there is no appropriate reaction when you're being disrespected. The only appropriate response is distance from people who disrespect you. Have you ever counted how many times you swallowed your emotions just to avoid seeming dramatic? How many times you apologized for being hurt? How many times you minimized your own pain so you wouldn't inconvenience the person who caused it? That needs to stop today. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet he understood that the most important opinion was his own opinion about himself. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So when someone tells you you're too sensitive, take a deep breath and understand they're trying to manipulate you. They want you questioning your own perception of reality. And here's something interesting. These people never say you're too sensitive when they're benefiting from you. When they need something, suddenly you're understanding, empathetic, amazing. But the moment you set boundaries, now you're too sensitive. Epictetus said something everyone should have engraved in their mind. It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. But pay attention. That doesn't mean you should silently accept everything. It means you choose how to interpret and how to respond. And the healthy response is simple. Distance yourself from people who invalidate your feelings. Because constant emotional invalidation is a form of psychological abuse. It's subtle, it's quiet, but it's devastating. It slowly erodes your self-esteem. It makes you question your own mind. The Stoics were masters of discernment. They knew the difference between constructive criticism and disguised attacks. They knew when someone genuinely wanted to help and when someone just wanted to hurt. And you can develop that discernment too. Watch the pattern. If every time you express a feeling, that person invalidates you, you're not dealing with someone who cares. You're dealing with someone who sees you as inferior. Socrates was executed by people who felt threatened by his truth. He could have stayed quiet. He could have pretended he was exaggerating, but he chose death with dignity over a life in denial. You don't have to go that far, of course, but you do need the courage to honor your own feelings, to validate your own experience, to trust yourself. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "I trust my feelings." I want to see who really understood this message. And go ahead and hit like on the video. Is this message hitting home? Share it with someone who needs to hear it. There are a lot of people out there being manipulated into thinking they're the problem. Now take a deep breath, because the third phrase I'm about to reveal is used by people who slowly destroy your confidence. And once you recognize it, you'll start seeing it everywhere in your life. The third deadly phrase that reveals hidden resentment is, "I was just joking. You're too sensitive." This one is devastating because it turns aggression into entertainment and still blames you for not laughing. Socrates warned about the danger of words disguised as humor. He said a person's true character is revealed not by what they say, but by how they react when you set boundaries. Think about it. When someone was actually joking and realizes they hurt you, what's the natural response? They apologize, right? They show concern. They try to make it right. But a toxic person, they double down. They call you uptight, say you have no sense of humor. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations about the importance of observing behavioral patterns. He taught, pay attention not to what people say, but to what they repeatedly do. That's where the truth lives. And what's the pattern here? They embarrass you in public, put you down in front of others, make you the punchline. And when you show discomfort, they accuse you of being weak, of not being able to take a joke. That's not joking. That's emotional bullying with a free pass. The Stoics were clear about one thing: respect is not optional in human relationships. Epictetus said that even as a slave, he still deserved dignity. And if a slave deserves dignity, how much more do you, a free person? But here's what happens. You start normalizing these jokes. You laugh along, even while feeling a tightness in your chest. You accept it because you don't want to be labeled the difficult one in the group. And little by little, you lose yourself. You lose your authenticity. You lose your voice. You lose your self-respect. Socrates confronted this directly. When the sophists of Athens used empty rhetoric and word games to humiliate others, he challenged them. He would ask, "What is the real purpose of what you're saying? To build or to destroy?" Because every form of communication has an intention, and when someone consistently uses humor to hurt you, the intention is clear: to diminish you so they can feel superior. Marcus Aurelius had an insightful take on this. He believed insecure people need to lower others to feel elevated. It's an illusion of power, compensation for their own inner weaknesses. So when someone attacks you disguised as a joke, understand this: the problem is not you. It's their deep insecurity, but that doesn't mean you should accept it. Quite the opposite. The Stoics taught us to set firm, clear boundaries, not with anger, not with drama, but with calm conviction. You simply say, "That's not funny to me," and hold your ground, and watch what happens. The toxic person will try to make you feel guilty. They'll say you've changed, that you've gotten boring, that you've lost your sense of humor. They'll pressure you to crawl back into the comfortable little box where they can use you as a target. Don't go back. Epictetus said something powerful. If someone handed your body over to a stranger, you'd be outraged. Yet you hand your mind over to anyone who insults you, letting it be disturbed and confused, and you feel no shame. Think about the depth of that. You protect your body, but you hand your peace of mind to people who don't deserve it. And these constant jokes do exactly that. They invade your peace, make you question your worth, condition you to accept disrespect as normal. Socrates challenged people to expose their real intentions. You can do the same. Next time someone says, "Relax, it was just a joke," ask calmly, "Can you explain what's funny about it?" Then watch the reaction. A genuine person will reflect, realize they messed up, apologize. A toxic person, they'll get defensive, attack you harder, accuse you of ruining the vibe. Good. Now you know exactly who you're dealing with. Marcus Aurelius wrote that life is too short to waste on people who don't respect you. He was right. How many years do you have left? 40? 50? 60? Do you really want to spend that time swallowing humiliation disguised as humor? The Stoics practiced something called memento mori. Remember, you will die. It sounds dark, but it's liberating. Because when you truly understand life is finite, you stop accepting crumbs of respect. You stop settling for mediocre relationships. You stop tolerating people who treat you like disposable entertainment. And here's the hardest part. Sometimes those people are longtime friends, family, people you love. But love does not justify abuse. It never has. It never will. Epictetus was clear. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. That means you don't need to lecture anyone. You simply act according to your principles. You set boundaries. You distance yourself when necessary. People will notice. They'll complain. They'll try to make you feel guilty. But you stay firm. Because your peace is worth more than the approval of those who don't respect you. Socrates chose death rather than betray his principles. You don't have to die, but you do have to be willing to kill relationships that are slowly killing you inside. Think about how many times you laughed at jokes about yourself just to avoid tension. How many times you pretended everything was fine while feeling crushed inside. How many times you played the sad clown in the story. Enough. The Stoics gave us all the tools we need to protect ourselves: discernment to identify, courage to set boundaries, wisdom to know when to walk away. Use those tools. Your mental health depends on it. And now come with me to the fourth revelation, because the next phrase is used by people who want to control you completely. It's one of the most dangerous of all. The fourth poisonous phrase toxic people use is, "After everything I've done for you." This one is an emotional bomb designed to trap you in a lifelong debt of forced gratitude. Socrates had a fundamental principle. Truly generous actions don't come with receipts. When someone acts out of genuine love or real kindness, they don't keep a mental spreadsheet of favors to throw in your face later. Marcus Aurelius wrote something revolutionary about this. The reward of a good deed is to have done it. And see the difference. Someone who acts with pure intention already feels rewarded by the act itself. They don't need to collect. They don't need reminders. They don't turn kindness into currency. But a manipulative person, they turn every gesture into an investment, every favor into debt, every act of help into an invisible chain that ties you to them. Think about it. When do you usually hear this phrase? When you try to set a boundary, when you say no, when you choose something different from what they expected. Exactly. The goal isn't to remind you of their generosity. The goal is to make you feel guilty for having a will of your own. Epictetus, who knew slavery firsthand, said something powerful. No one is free who is not master of themselves. And when someone uses past favors to control your present decisions, you stop being free. You become an emotional hostage. The Stoics studied human motivation deeply. They understood that there are two kinds of generosity: authentic and transactional. Authentic generosity comes from the heart, expecting nothing in return. Transactional generosity is a calculated investment, expecting payback with interest. Want to know how to tell the difference? Simple. Watch what happens when you can't repay them, when you need to say no, when you choose a different path. A genuinely generous person will understand. They'll respect your autonomy. They'll keep loving you even when you can't give them what they want. A transactional person, They'll list every single thing they've done for you. They'll make you feel ungrateful. They'll accuse you of being selfish. Marcus Aurelius dealt with this constantly in the imperial palace. People did political favors, expecting positions, privileges, influence. He learned to tell the difference between true loyalty and disguised self-interest. You need to learn that too. Because when someone throws everything they've done for you in your face, they're revealing something. None of it came from the heart. It was strategy, manipulation, an emotional trap. Socrates had an interesting way of handling this. When someone tried to control him using past favors, he would simply ask, "Why did you do that? Because I asked, or because you wanted to?" Most of the time, people did things he never requested, and later charged him as if they had saved his life. It's a classic manipulation tactic. Epictetus warned his students about this. He said we should genuinely appreciate the help we receive, but never allow gratitude to turn into a prison. Gratitude and freedom can and must coexist. But toxic people don't want your gratitude. They want control. They want you to feel permanently indebted. They want power over your choices. And here's something interesting. These people never remember what you did for them. They never acknowledge your sacrifices. They never value your contributions. But they keep a detailed mental file of every dollar, every favor, every gesture they made. It's a one-way emotional street. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Refuse to be enslaved by anything that is not absolutely necessary, and being in permanent emotional debt to someone is not necessary. It's a choice, one you can refuse." The Stoics practice something called preferred indifference. That means you can prefer to have certain people or things in your life, but you don't depend on them for your inner peace. You are grateful, but not a hostage. That distinction is crucial. When someone genuinely helped you in the past, you can be grateful and still say no today. You can say thank you and still choose your own path. You can honor the gesture and still set boundaries. Socrates demonstrated this perfectly. Many people helped him during his life. But when the moment came to choose between his principles and pleasing those people, he chose his principles, because inner freedom is worth more than external approval. And you? How many times have you agreed to something you didn't want because someone reminded you of everything they did for you? How many times have you felt guilty for having your own will? How many times have you betrayed your own values to repay an emotional debt you never asked to take on? Think carefully about that. Epictetus was clear. If you want to be free, don't desire or avoid anything that depends on others. Otherwise, you will inevitably be a slave. And when you let past favors dictate your present decisions, you're living exactly the kind of slavery Epictetus described. Marcus Aurelius constantly dealt with people trying to buy his loyalty, expensive gifts, strategic favors, calculated praise. But he always kept one question in mind. Does this person act this way because they value me or because they want to use me? Ask yourself that same question about the people in your life, especially the ones who frequently remind you of everything they've done for you. Because real love doesn't keep score. True friendship doesn't send invoices. Healthy family bonds don't turn affection into leverage. The Stoics taught us to accept help when necessary, while keeping our autonomy intact, always preserving our power of choice, always honoring our values above manufactured obligation. Socrates drank the hemlock surrounded by people who loved him and had done much for him. He could have escaped. His friends offered help, but he chose death with integrity over a life of moral debt. Obviously, you don't need to go that far. But you do need to understand the principle. Your personal integrity cannot be traded for past favors. And when someone tries to manipulate you with that phrase, take a deep breath, thank them sincerely for what they did, and hold your ground. Because gratitude and boundaries are not opposites, they are both essential for healthy relationships. Now come with me to the fifth revelation, because the next phrase is used specifically to destroy your self-esteem and make you emotionally dependent on the person who mistreats you. The fifth devastating phrase that reveals malicious intent is, "No one else would put up with you like I do." This line is designed to crush your self-esteem and trap you in a toxic relationship out of pure fear of being alone. Socrates dealt with this constantly from the powerful people of Athens. They said no one else would tolerate his uncomfortable questions, that he should be grateful just to be allowed to remain in the city. Do you know what he did? He kept being exactly who he was until his very last day. Marcus Aurelius wrote something essential. You have intrinsic value independent of other people's opinions. Do you see how completely that clashes with this poisonous phrase? Someone who truly loves you makes you feel valuable. A toxic person makes you feel like a burden. Think about this. When someone tells you no one else would put up with you, they are planting 3 poisonous seeds in your mind at the same time. First, you are hard to love. Second, you should be grateful they're still around. Third, you have no better options. It's triple manipulation packed into a single sentence. Epictetus, who lived for years as a slave before gaining his freedom, understood exactly how this kind of psychological control works. He said, "No person can imprison you except yourself, through your beliefs about who you are." And that's exactly what this phrase does. It creates a limiting belief that you are too problematic, too complicated, too difficult, that you should accept crumbs of affection because you don't deserve more. A lie. Completely a lie. The Stoics taught that every human being has inherent dignity. Marcus Aurelius ruled millions, yet he understood that a slave had the same fundamental worth as an emperor. Because dignity doesn't come from social status. It comes from being human, and you, as a human being, deserve respect. You deserve consideration. You deserve genuine love, no matter how many flaws you have, no matter how difficult you may be sometimes. You still deserve to be treated with dignity, but the person who uses that phrase doesn't believe that. To them, you're lucky to have them in your life, as if they're doing charity work by tolerating you. Socrates had a perfect response to this kind of argument. He would ask, "If being with me is so difficult, why do you stay? No one is forcing you." And here's the interesting part. People never had a good answer, because the truth is, someone who truly finds you unbearable simply leaves. They don't stay while constantly reminding you of the favor they're doing by remaining. That's the difference. Marcus Aurelius wrote about relationships in his Meditations. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. But I'd add this. The greatest liberation is refusing to believe the lies people tell you about yourself. Epictetus taught his students to question every belief that reduced their self-worth. He said, "Examine your thoughts. Where did they come from? Are they yours, or were they planted by someone else? When you believe that no one else would put up with you, you're buying into a narrative created by someone who benefits from your low self-esteem. Because as long as you believe that, you stay. You accept disrespect, you tolerate the intolerable. The Stoics were masters of logic. So let's apply logic here. If you were truly that impossible to love, how is this person able to put up with you? Do they have some special superpower? Or are you not nearly as unbearable as they want you to believe? And more than that, how many other people have loved you? Family, real friends, past partners? If so many people have loved you without throwing it in your face, what does that say about the claim this toxic person is making? It says one thing: manipulation, pure and simple. Socrates valued truth above all else, and the truth here is clear. People who genuinely love you build your self-esteem. They don't destroy it. They celebrate your strengths. They are patient with your flaws. They grow alongside you. A manipulative person does the opposite. They turn your flaws into weapons. They use every weakness as proof that you should feel lucky they're still around, like a saint tolerating a sinner. Marcus Aurelius faced flatterers like this all the time. People who pretended to tolerate him just to gain favors, power, influence. He learned to recognize them and keep his distance, because an emperor may have many servants but very few true friends. And you? Do you have emotional servants or real friends? People who genuinely value who you are, or people who make you feel indebted just because they exist in your life? Epictetus had a powerful line about this. If someone looks down on you, that's their problem, not yours. Your only problem is if you start believing their contempt. So stop. Stop believing. Stop accepting this poisonous narrative that you are a burden. Stop being grateful for crumbs of affection when you deserve a banquet of real love. The Stoics practiced deep self-knowledge. They knew exactly who they were, strengths and flaws alike, and that self-awareness protected them from destructive outside opinions. You can build that too. You can look at yourself honestly. Recognize where you need to grow, and at the same time understand that your imperfections do not make you unworthy of love. Socrates was annoying, he knew it, he admitted it, but he also knew his questions had value, that his purpose was bigger than other people's convenience, and he died without ever betraying that truth. You don't have to be convenient to be loved. You don't have to be easy to deserve respect. You don't have to be perfect to have dignity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If you let thoughts of low worth dominate your mind, your inner life will reflect that. But if you cultivate thoughts of self-respect, your whole life changes. And when someone throws that poisonous line at you, that no one else would put up with you, you can look them in the eye and think, maybe no one needs to put up with me. Maybe I need someone who celebrates me, not someone who merely tolerates me. Because there's a massive difference between being tolerated and being loved, between being a burden and being a gift, between someone who puts up with you and someone who chooses you with joy every single day. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. And your reaction to that phrase should be absolute clarity, clarity that you deserve more, clarity that this person is manipulating you, clarity that it's time to value yourself. The Stoics gave us wisdom that echoes across centuries, and that wisdom shouts one truth: you are worthy of genuine love, not condescending tolerance. Real love, respectful love, love that lifts you up instead of tearing you down. If you made it this far and truly understood this message, write in the comments, "I deserve real love." I want to see who's committed to their own emotional freedom. Now come with me to the final revelation, the sixth and last phrase. And this one is so powerful, so revealing, that once you recognize it, you'll never see certain people the same way again. And now we arrive at the most powerful revelation of all, the sixth and final phrase that exposes the deepest and most dangerous kind of hatred. I know you better than you know yourself. This is the ultimate weapon of manipulation, because it tries to steal something sacred from you, your right to define who you are. Socrates dedicated his entire life to self-knowledge. His most famous teaching was, "Know thyself." And do you know why? Because he understood that when you truly know yourself, no one can distort your reality. No one can convince you that you are someone you're not. But a manipulative person hates that. They need you to doubt yourself. They need to be the ultimate authority on who you are, what you feel, and what you really want. Marcus Aurelius wrote something revolutionary. You have power over only one domain, your own mind. Bro. But when someone tells you they know you better than you know yourself, they are invading that territory. They are trying to colonize your mind. Think about it. How many times has someone told you what you're really feeling? Explained your own motivations to you? Corrected you about your own experiences? As if they had privileged access to your inner reality that even you don't have. That isn't love. That's emotional authoritarian control. Epictetus, even while enslaved, preserved one thing that was completely his inner perception. No one could tell him what he felt. No one could define his thoughts for him, and it was this inner autonomy that kept him free, even in chains. The Stoics understood something fundamental. The final frontier of human freedom is the interpretation of your own experience. You can be physically imprisoned, but as long as you keep the right to interpret your own life, you are free. And when someone says they know you better than you know yourself, they are trying to steal exactly that. Socrates faced this constantly, people claiming they knew better than he did what he really meant, twisting his words into convenient interpretations, distorting his intentions. Do you know what he did? He asked a simple question. How can you be absolutely certain about another person's inner reality? And no one ever had a logical answer, because it's impossible. But toxic people don't need logic. They operate through repetition and erosion. They tell you so many times that they know you better than you know yourself that you start to believe it, until you hand over authority over your own mind. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but he knew that real power was internal self-governance. He wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you dig." But how can you dig deeper if someone else is telling you where to dig, what you'll find, how you should interpret it? Epictetus had students who arrived confused, conditioned by years of others defining their reality. His first task was reconnecting them with their own inner perception, teaching that trusting yourself isn't arrogance. It's a basic requirement for psychological survival. And here's something interesting. The person who claims to know you better than you know yourself never applies that logic to themselves. They never accept when you try to explain who they really are. They have total authority over themselves, but you're an open book that only they can read. See the hypocrisy? Socrates exposed these contradictions with simple questions. If you know me so well, tell me, what am I thinking right now? Of course they couldn't, because it's impossible. But the illusion of superior insight gave them power, and that's exactly the power toxic people seek over you. Marcus Aurelius dealt with advisors like this too, people who claimed to know better than he did what the empire needed, what he truly wanted, what his real motivations were, and he had to constantly reaffirm his inner authority. You have to do the same. Because when you allow someone else to define your reality, you lose something essential. You lose the ability to trust yourself. You lose clarity about your own feelings. You lose the compass of your own life. Epictetus told his students, "First decide who you want to be, then do what you must." But how can you decide who you want to be if someone else has already decided for you? The Stoics practice something called prososche, vigilant attention to the mind, a constant exercise of observing your thoughts, feelings, and reactions, knowing yourself so deeply that no external narrative could confuse you. Socrates took this to the extreme. He spent his life examining not only his own mind, but encouraging others to examine theirs, because he knew an unexamined mind is vulnerable to manipulation. And when the time came for his execution, he was offered a way out. He could renounce everything he stood for and be forgiven. In other words, accept Athens's definition of who he was instead of his own. He chose death, because living a life defined by others isn't living, it's existing as a puppet. You don't have to go that far, but you do need to understand the principle. Your self-definition is sacred. No one has the right to tell you who you are, what you feel, or what you truly want. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. That includes what people say about you. It's their perspective, not absolute truth. But a toxic person presents their perspective as unquestionable truth, and expects you to accept it without resistance, because questioning makes you difficult, stubborn, unwilling to accept help. That's a lie. Questioning is healthy. It's exercising your fundamental right to self-determination. Epictetus had a clear rule for his students. Never accept a claim about yourself without examining it critically first. You can consider it, reflect on it, but never accept it blindly, because you are the only person with full access to your inner experience. You are the only witness to all your thoughts, all your feelings, your entire internal history. Other people see fragments, interpretations, projections of what they want to see, but you have the full picture. Socrates trusted that full picture more than anything, and that trust sustained him until the end. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by thousands of opinions about who he was and what he should do, kept a personal journal, a place where he could be completely honest with himself, where his truth ruled absolutely. You need that space too, physical or mental, a place where you are the highest authority over your own reality. And when someone comes at you with that poisonous phrase, that they know you better than you know yourself, take a deep breath and say with conviction, "You may know me well, but never better than I know myself." That isn't arrogance. That's psychological self-preservation. Epictetus left us with a precious legacy. No person is free who is not master of themselves. And being master of yourself begins with being the ultimate authority over your own definition. The Stoics taught us that true wisdom begins with self-knowledge. True freedom begins with inner autonomy. True peace begins when you stop seeking external validation for your own reality. Socrates died free because no one could convince him to be someone he wasn't. Marcus Aurelius lived free even as emperor because he maintained sovereignty over his own mind. Epictetus freed himself from slavery through absolute inner autonomy. And you? Will you keep letting other people write your story? Or will you take the pen back and become the author of your own life? If you watch this video all the way to the end, you already know the answer. You understand now that these 6 phrases aren't coincidences. They are deliberate tools of manipulation used by people who benefit from your confusion, your low self-esteem, your fear. Now you have the knowledge, you have the Stoic tools, you have the wisdom of Socrates, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus on your side. Use it. Observe the people around you, identify the patterns, set firm boundaries, and when necessary, have the courage to walk away. Because your peace of mind is worth more than any toxic relationship. Your dignity is worth more than approval from someone who doesn't respect you. Your inner freedom is worth more than the convenience of staying in situations that slowly destroy you. If this resonated with you, if it helped you see things that were hidden before, hit like and subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who needs to hear it urgently. And on your screen right now, you'll see 2 more videos that continue this journey of self-knowledge and emotional freedom. Click them, because the work that started here needs to continue. Stoic philosophy has survived for over 2,000 years because it works, because it changes lives, because it frees people. Now it's your turn to be free, to know yourself deeply, to trust yourself above any outside opinion. Go live that freedom. You deserve it.